Keep Our Republic is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. Since the spring of 2020, we've been doing our part to help keep our republic. We do it through hyper-localized civic education. We talk with Americans through town halls, legal seminars, media briefings, and other events. We know a lot of Americans have a lot of questions about how our elections work, what safeguards are in place, and who actually is working behind the scenes on election night as the votes are being tabulated. Today, I'm joined by my colleague, Patrick Melody. We're talking with Lisa Posthumus Lyons. She's the County Clerk and Register of Deeds in Kent County, Michigan. Together, we're hoping we can answer some of those questions.
Well, Lisa, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us from sunny Grand Rapids. And I wish I was there, honestly. It's a lot different than Washington. And I have really enjoyed our time traveling around Kent County and then around the great state of Michigan. So I'm really glad we found time to sit down.
It's great to be back with you, Ari. I've really enjoyed our opportunities to get together. Looking forward to today's discussion, but really you get to know somebody by going on a road trip, and that's exactly what we did last year. And it's really good to be with you too, Patrick, getting to know you better as well.
Yeah, Lisa and I saw parts of this country that I had never seen. I mean, I think Lisa's seen all 83 counties of Michigan at some point or another, but we put on a lot of road miles answering everyday Michiganders' questions about how elections are administered. And every county does it somewhat differently. Every state certainly does it differently. And Lisa's a real expert, so we're super lucky to have you join us and join our audience. So, Lisa, you've been in this position since 2016. Before that, you were in the legislature. At what point did kind of the spark go off that you wanted to devote a career to public service?
Well, I kind of grew up with public service and servant leadership. My dad was in the legislature when we were growing up. He served for 16 years in the Michigan Senate, was the longest serving Senate Majority Leader. And then he served for 4 years as Lieutenant Governor. And so we've really kind of got to watch the importance of servant leadership from that end when it comes to public service. And then my mother, she stayed home with my siblings and myself after we all were born, left a career in the Michigan Senate as a chief of staff to raise her family. And she really exemplified leadership in her own right and service and dedication, whether it was through our school organizations, the PTOs, the sports organizations, and 4-H, being our 4-H leader. So we just really grew up with the sense that too much is given, much is expected. And you really need to give back to your community and look to put others first and see how you can get involved and use your gifts and abilities to help other people in your community.
We have certainly audience members in Michigan, but many outside. Just remind folks, how many state senators are there? And then for that matter, how many state house members as well?
We have 38 senators in Michigan and 110 members of the Michigan House. And so we're a bicameral legislature full-time. And we do have term limits. They recently changed. We used to have the strictest term limits in the nation, which is what I was under when I was in the House of Representatives. I served there from 2011 through 2016, and we were allowed in the House two-year terms, 3 of them, and then in the Senate you could have 2 4-year terms. So Michigan is a full-time term limited legislature. We just kind of reformed the term limits this past election cycle. So now an individual can serve a combination of House and Senate years of service for 12 years.
And then we've been chatting, as our audience knows, with other election administrators across the country. It's not necessarily common for someone to go from the legislative side to the county election administrator, clerk, recorder of deeds side. So what was that jump? Tell folks a little about that.
Yeah, that was interesting. So I chaired the House Elections Committee from 2013 through the end of my tenure. So my last 2 terms in the House, I was assigned to chair the Elections Committee. And that's really kind of where my passion for for the institution and process of our system really was born. I had worked in campaigns. I'd been a candidate. I'd been, kind of grassroots in the policy and the politics. But once I was leading the committee on elections and got to really dig deep and get a thorough understanding of our process and just really the magnitude of and reverence that elections represent in our country, that's when I decided I wanted to be more involved in the election side of things. And it just worked out perfectly that our longtime county clerk here in Kent County was retiring just as I was term limited out of office. So it was truly just a natural step to come here and serve the citizens in Kent County in this role. And it's been awesome. I've enjoyed almost every second of it.
So Lisa, were there any laws that you proposed and you worked on when you were in the legislature serving with 109 of your colleagues, because it's 110, that you have now seen the effects of, or how those work in your job as the Kent County elections official or county clerk?
Some of the things I worked on when I was chairing the elections committee was ensuring that we were honoring local control and our decentralized process here in Michigan. We were on the cusp of replacing our election equipment. And what that meant was a huge influx of requests for proposals and different vendors coming into the state and really putting their systems to the test to make sure that they could kind of comply first with FEC requirements and then with Michigan's specific standards and individual parts of our process. And there was this we were hearing talk about maybe the state was going to select one election equipment system for the entire state. And that really raised the eyebrows of some of our county clerks or local clerks, because what works in Wayne County doesn't necessarily work in Wexford County. What works in Kent County doesn't work in Kalkaska County. And so we really wanted to make sure that that our clerks, the county clerks, had the ability to really drive that discussion and that decision. So I worked on a bill that would require county clerks to make the decision for what election system would be used throughout that county in consultation with the local clerks. And that was just kind of one of those things that you don't think about. It's not sexy, but in the end, it was really important to ensuring that our election system, our voting systems were implemented across the board in a way that works for every individual county. So that's something that I'm pretty proud of. We're kind of looking toward the tail end of that round of election equipment, and so we're kind of going through this process again here in the next few years. So it's one of those things that kind of lasts that you don't really think about, but it's important. I also was really interested in election integrity and election security, and how can we do that how can we bolster all of those processes, making it easy to vote but hard to cheat. And so I worked on no reason absentee voting when I was in the House, when I chaired the committee, and that was really interesting. It was the beginning of a discussion that my party, the Republican Party, really wasn't ready to take that issue on, to really learn exactly what absentee voting means and how, in terms of how secure it is, how we can make it convenient for the mass of voters who utilize it. We were seeing increased absentee participation every cycle. And so we know it's something that the voters really liked, and it was popular with them. And so I wanted to give them the opportunity to not have to lie on an application by providing a reason when it really wasn't true, or B, not being able to cast a ballot. So we really worked on that. It was a lot of discussions, a lot of education, and we got pretty far. We got it through the House of Representatives, and it just kind of died in the Senate along, getting caught up in other policy issues and political issues. And so that was frustrating, in the sense that I wasn't able to get it across the line, but it definitely opened up that discussion. It put that on the table. And my message to my fellow Republican colleagues was, this is coming because this is very, very popular. And, lo and behold, in 2018, of course, the voters passed a constitutional amendment that allows for no reason absentee voting. So just to kind of be on maybe even a little ahead of its time in some of these policy issues, to see them evolve, from just a fledgling bill or idea through the good, the bad, and the ugly of the legislative process, and to just kind of watch that all come to pass. That's been neat.
A lot of great items to unpackage there. We'll definitely get to the 2018 that you referenced in Prop 2. And just as a quick aside, so what voting machine system does Kent County use?
We have 3 approved voter systems in Michigan: Hart InterCivic, ES&S, and Dominion voting systems. Kent County utilizes Dominion voting systems, and I've been pleased with our system. I think it's served our voters well, and we get great service too.
Do you have a favor?
You alluded to this. There's local clerks, and then there's you as the county clerk. So maybe just for the benefit of all non-Michiganders, just kind of spell out the duties articulated to the municipal clerks, and then for that matter, how many municipalities and clerks you're working with in Kent County.
We have really a unique setup in Michigan. I think maybe Wisconsin might be the closest, most similarly aligned with how we do things. Here in Michigan, we're unique in that we're very, very decentralized. And I think that is so underappreciated in terms of the security that offers our elections in Michigan. They're not run at the state level. They're not even run at the county level. We have 83 counties. They're run at our local level, at our townships, our cities. We have 83 counties, and we have over 1,600 county and city and township clerks. So we're not having one big election. We're having thousands of little individual elections that go into an aggregate. And I think that's a testament to the work that our election administrators put into running these elections. But I also think it's a testament to just the idea of having, elections and government running close to the people.
What do you think of is the biggest challenge for election officials these days? And if you want to, talk about how you first got into the job to what it looks like today, how it's evolved and changed due to those challenges.
Can I follow up first on Ari? You asked me the difference too between the local and county clerks. So with that decentralization, we're all involved in the elections process, but in different ways. Really, the boots on the ground operations are our local clerks. They're in charge of the voter list. They're in charge of registering their voters and maintaining that list. They're in charge of issuing the absentee ballots to our voters, and they're the actual operations that you see on the elections. Those, those are done by our city and township clerks. And then the county clerks, we're responsible, general overseeing the administration throughout the county. We're responsible for training our election workers. We're responsible for programming the elections and making sure the ballots are getting printed and printed correctly. We are responsible for ensuring that our county canvas is running. I serve as the the aide or the clerk, the board of canvassers, our bipartisan board of canvassers, and then we are responsible for reporting the election results, unofficially, officially. And so we have I think we're fortunate in Kent County because our local clerks, we have 30 jurisdictions, 21 townships, and 9 cities. There's 5 villages also, but the villages elections are run through the townships. We, I believe in Kent County, are a great model of a true partnership. Whatever my office, I or my elections team, whatever we can do to help our local clerks be successful on the ground, I want to do. They look to me for support, and they look to me to kind of be the ambassador and be the kind of cheerleader and spokesperson for our county's elections, and to really just get their back in any way that's needed. So we have a great partnership. I'm biased, but Kent County clerks do a great job, and we couldn't do it without that strong working relationship.
Well, that brings us to you have a lot of volunteers that you work with. You have a lot of folks, and you're probably always trying to recruit folks. So, what would you say to some young folks or to some fellow Michigan State graduates, go Spartans, to get involved with elections or to even be a public servant because you've done that. You've done that too, and your father did that too.
I think there's a lot of different avenues where people could express interest and get plugged in. I've seen a lot of that through the last 4 years. I believe elections are the bedrock of our republic, and they're reliant upon public trust in the process. And public trust in the process is reliant upon understanding that process. And so education is a key part of that. The more people know how the elections work and how the process has so many checks and balances before, during, and after the election, the more inclined they are to have faith in the outcome and trust the process to work. But equally as important as educating the public is that participation level. I can talk to people and educate folks all day long how our system works and why they should trust it, and the checks and balances and the bipartisan participation. But don't take my word for it. Come and see it for yourself. Participate by watching all of these opportunities that we have in these public settings where we test our equipment before the elections. Participate by becoming a poll challenger or a poll watcher, or better yet, becoming an election inspector, one of our poll workers. There's no better way to trust your elections than by being a part of them yourself. And so we really work to roll out the red carpet for people to come and watch and observe, because we want them to know how transparent the process is, so they can learn it, they can be part of it, and then they can work in it themselves. And so I think that's participation is critical. So when I go out and I'm talking to groups, organizations, and especially schools, my plug is this is your election. Get involved in it. And so I think that really is a key part of making our elections process work, not just being able to trust them, but actually executing and carrying out these elections that are secure, transparent, fair, and accurate.
Incredibly well said and sage advice for younger audience members. I wanted to take a step back. You had referenced earlier in your career working on absentee ballots, and certainly in Michigan, like elsewhere in the country, there's been a large increase in people voting early and voting by mail. And how has that worked with the folks, your colleagues at the county level, at the municipal level? I mean, that just must be all sorts of SOPs and training that goes into just this paradigm shift.
Now, when I took office in January of 2017, elections looked very different than they do now, and in the matter of 9 years, or yeah, in the matter of 9 years. I've had 28 elections under my belt, and every time, every election brings changes. And some of them have been sweeping and overarching, such as some of these ballot proposals in 2018, where we had no reason absentee voting implemented. You had automatic voter registration, same day registration, lots of big policy changes that have to get implemented right and well, without stopping, because we're not gonna pause the next election while we get these changes implemented. So it was tremendously challenging to election administrators dealing with the implementation of that proposal. And then you had proposal in 2022, proposal 2, which made even more changes. And so you're looking at all kinds of, just when you get caught up, there's a whole new shift, there's a whole new implementation effort. But we're all in the same boat. And the voters spoke, they spoke loudly and clearly, and that was our charge to implement those changes in a way that don't impact the integrity of the election, or at least to the extent possible. And really, we set the tone. So we just put our heads down, did what we needed to do, and provided our voters, an election that has been looking differently. But in some respects, some of these changes have been very good. Early voting is one example. That was part of the proposal in 22. We found that people like it. It's a lot of time and effort and funding to put this into place, but particularly on our November elections, people are having fun. They're enjoying it. They stand in line, and they're happy, and it's just a celebration. What you think election day should be is what we're seeing in early voting. And Michigan has 9 days, at least 9 days of early voting. All of our jurisdictions in Kent County go 9 days. But some of the drawbacks of putting these reforms in a ballot proposal that changes the Constitution, they can hamstring our ability to take what works and improve upon that, or what doesn't work, and make changes. For example, we have jurisdictions who have nobody come in on Sundays, but we're required to be offering that. And so we just can't make little different shifts in what might work for different jurisdictions. So there's pluses and minuses, but altogether, I'd say, particularly early voting is working well. And I think we've demonstrated that there really is a way that our voters can vote absentee and can vote early and do it securely. And that's our job. So it's been not without challenge, but it's been just something that we take in stride. We're professionals. We know what we have to do, and we're going to give our voters the best election they could have.
Well, I remember when we first met, it seems like decades ago, in December of 2023, if memory serves me, at the Gerald R. Ford Museum there in Kent County. and there were several dozen, if I recall, clerks from around western, southwestern Michigan, and particularly those from more rural jurisdictions had a lot of thoughts on their minds as they were going into the 2024 election. I mean, as we know, Michigan's always battleground USA. It's as purple as can be, and Kent County is also as 50-50 as can be.
Yeah, it's been really beneficial to have groups like Keep Our Republic coming along and walking side election administrators, whether it's an event like that you're having for election officials, for our local clerks to kind of discuss what are you seeing, what are some of the challenges, how can Keep Our Republic be helpful. From those events to, the road shows of educating the public and having these panels and going throughout the entire state, listening tours and education tours, to have organizations like Keep Our Republic here alongside us. That's something we didn't have prior to 2020. And it's been so valuable to have that kind of support, to know that there are people standing in the gap with us in a very challenging time when there's a lot of focus on elections. There's a lot of questions about elections. There's a lot of changes in elections. And so I can't stress enough how helpful it's been to, as we're implementing these changes and as we're going through to provide secure and transparent elections, to have these opportunities with Keep Our Republic for education and participation.
And so that brings me to, I know you're a big country music fan. So let's talk about the struggles, because country music captures the struggles. So what do you think are some of the most common misperceptions, egregious disinformation, people who want to sow chaos and confusion? What should the average voter in Kent County and throughout the state of Michigan know, that really these things are designed to confuse them and to challenge them and to challenge their ability to cast a ballot? If you could talk about a little bit of those.
Yeah, it's we live in a world where anybody can say anything, and disinformation and misinformation, that's not new to our process and to elections and to campaigns, but it's different because our technology is different. And so there's just the ability to cast a wider net with information, whether it's accurate or not, and to have it go more viral, to have more people see it. And so it's just that much more important that you have election administrators, that you have clerks stepping up to be, election ambassadors, to talk about, to kind of counter that misinformation, that you have groups that are focused on supporting those that are running elections and supporting our republic and the democratic process that we have, like Keep Our Republic and so many others, because I can't control what everybody is going to say, but I can listen, and I can provide my expertise and really just be there to answer questions. Some of the things that have been real frustrating for us is particularly the persisting concerns about our election equipment. Again, I think it's really important to meet people where they're at. It's critical to be dismissive of someone when they've got questions or concerns, to pretend that everything is perfect, because nothing is. We're humans, and we can always do better. I just don't find that to be productive. So to meet people where they're at, to listen, to answer their questions. By and large, I found people are coming with these questions or doubts or things that they've heard. They're coming and vocalizing them earnestly. And most of the time, I found that people are willing to learn whether that's right or inaccurate. And be receptive to that information. But these persisting things about our election equipment, switching votes, things like that, I just think has been frustrating that it continued beyond beyond a certain time frame and asked and answered kind of thing. But bottom line is most people aren't I found most people aren't inclined to continue down a misinformed path like the election equipment switching votes when they're listened to, they're heard, and they learn that even if we have testing our equipment beforehand and you can come and watch, so we know the votes aren't being switched by the machines. We have these machines, these tabulators aren't connected to the internet, so they can't be hacked by domestic or foreign influences, and so things like that. And then above all, whatever happens with the machine, we have paper ballots. Paper. And, I could run an election with a pencil and a piece of paper. And to have those paper ballots, the paper, the auditable paper trail of voter applications and things like that, I think that really instills a sense of comfort and confidence when people know that. The key is they are comfortable and trust our elections when they know how the process works.
So let's shift a little bit. You represented the 86th district, and you have lived in Kent County and Alta all your life. Can you describe where you live, what part of Michigan, and what it's like there for people who have not had a chance to visit there?
I can. So, as a good Michigander, Kent County is right here in West Michigan. And I've lived, in Kent County my whole life. I mentioned my dad was in elected office, and I'm in elected office, and just kind of that generational handed down duty of service. So I think people often might say or think I have this political pedigree, but I'm really a farm girl first and foremost. I didn't even know my dad was in politics until I was like maybe 11 years old. Because as far as I knew, we grew up on a farm and we were sheep farmers. And so I'm the fourth generation to own my family's farm. It was a dairy farm when my dad was growing up, and we had cash crops. And I really am proud of my heritage. My dad was the first one to go to college, but continued to farm right up until about 1994. And then he leased out his farmland, and I own our farm now, and lease that out to somebody who is doing crops on there. So I've lived in Alto. I grew up in the same house that I was living in and raising my family. But before that, I bought the house on our original family farm that my grandpa was raised in. And so that's just kind of neat that that we continue you can have roots and you can have wings. And I feel like I've had an opportunity to impart both and apply both. So yeah, Alto is awesome. Alto for life, is that what we say? But so the home that I was raising our kids in, which was the home I was raised in Alto, actually burnt down in 2018. And so we stayed there, but we rebuilt a new house and moved in just before the pandemic. I have to be stuck in my brand new house after being displaced for over a year. I'm all right with that. I was okay with quarantine for just a little while. But I continue to love where I live and the people that are in my community. My husband and I have been married for 22 years this year. He is my high school sweetheart, and I call him the stud of Elto. Yeah.
Okay.
And
The
we just,
sheriff, right?
yeah, he's worked for the Kent County Sheriff's Office for almost 25 years. He's a captain there. And we have 4 kids, and they are awesome. They are this being a parent is why I don't stay up at night losing sleep over what's going to happen before elections or during elections. Just gives you a lot of perspective. So they keep us busy, and it's been awesome. I had 4 and under for a little while. And that's kind of when I was in the House of Representatives. Now time goes fast. As a parent, my oldest is 20, and my youngest is going to be 16 in a couple months. So it's been a great time to watch them kind of become the people that God's meant for them to be. And I've loved watching them in their activities. So I was mentioned being a farm girl. I was in 4-H and FFA, and my daughter is big into showing at our county fair. In fact, Ari, I don't know if you remember, but when we did ballots and battlegrounds last fall, we were kind of shuttling from our meeting spot to where the event was going to be, and you wanted to ride with me over there. And I thought, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this. But it was right after our county fair. So it smelled like our van smelled like a barnyard, all of the things. And I thought, oh, well, Ari's getting a real taste of what, just keeping it real. So we're involved in a lot of the agricultural stuff. My kids do sports. I played sports when I was younger. But I'm a big wrestling mom, and I'm that mom. I'm so intense and not negative, but I cheer loud and I cheer hard. And yeah, so we do a lot of sports and 4-H fair activities, and we are very big hunters in my family. My husband used to guide hunts out west in Wyoming for a month every fall. In fact, he was out west when my youngest Fisher was born. Fisher came early in Brad's defense, so he was 2 weeks early. So Brad was still out west, and at that time, you really couldn't you didn't have very good service. You couldn't get a hold of him, and he found out shortly after that Fisher was born, and then yeah, so he got home, and there were 4 kids when there were 3 when he left. But yeah, we do a lot of hunting with my family. It's something we instill with all of my kids. We deer hunt. We hunt whitetails. My favorite thing to hunt is actually turkeys. The weather's, it's spring. The weather's a little nicer, and you're kind of on the move, engaging with them, calling them in. So yeah, I like to say our family is a lot like Duck Dynasty minus the millions of dollars.
We're you've been super generous with your time, and as we're winding down, we're not going to ask you to do your best turkey call. But regarding ballots and battlegrounds, that was an incredibly memorable time when we had your counterparts from all the different battleground states gathered in the state of Michigan at President Ford's library. And you did in my opinion, just a home run grand slam. You're really unpackaging all the safeguards in place for the national media that was assembled. So you know from raising 4 children, sleepless nights, and I imagine in 2026 there might be some sleepless nights because the eyes of the country and to a degree the world are going to be on Michigan. It seems like everything is up for grabs in Michigan. Control of your legislature, control of the Congress will probably run through Michigan, certainly the row offices in Lansing and the governor's office. So as you're preparing, and we're recording this more than a year out, what kind of keeps you up at night as you're thinking of what might be coming down the pike? Realizing that there are still lots of questions, a lot of misinformation swirling around, and unfortunately, probably inevitably, there will be even more next year that we're not thinking about.
I think one of the big things that is on my mind, but I can't really yet even get my mind fully wrapped around it, is artificial intelligence and what role that is going to play, in the short term, what role that can play in potential misinformation, what role that can play in actual election administration. I think we'll start to see election administration utilizing AI at some point. But again, I still can't fully get my head around the capabilities of what AI can offer, good, bad, and ugly. So I think, that's something that I think about a little bit. It doesn't necessarily keep me up at night because, again, I just go back to, we have paper ballots, we have paper poll books, and we have paper results tapes. And so at the end of the day, while we have all this technology and we utilize all this technology, we are still using, old-fashioned yet highly effective method of casting our votes. So, whatever comes our way, we're going to be prepared. I'm just going to continue spending this time working, hopefully more with Keep Our Republic with you, Ari. I don't know, we're due for another road trip sometime soon, but just continue educating the public, continue trying to listen and engage with where we can do better, and where people can get plugged in and participate. And, we talk about our kids and as parents, when it relates to our elections, and then you just kind of step back. I used to bring my kids every election, so they would come in the voting booth. I wanted them to participate. I wanted them to understand the tremendous privilege that we have to be in a country where I get to decide who is going to represent me. I get to decide, the makeup of our government, and nobody can take that away from me. And I want my kids to value and appreciate and revere what we have, in a democratic process, that our republic affords this representative government, and that they have the ability to make their voices heard, to participate, and to be leaders. So it's really important to kind of, you're called Keep Our Republic, and this is Keepers of the Republic. I think, you talk about us as election administrators, as clerks.
As our keeper republics. You guys are keepers of the republic.
As clerks, we're keepers of the republic. But I can't tell you how strongly I believe that our kids are, that our candidates are. It takes tremendous leadership to continue and advocate for our way of government and our system and our process. And if our kids aren't learning it, if they're not excited about it, shame on us, because they're the future of this republic, and they are going to be the keepers of the republic here. So I look at that, and I'm preparing for an election next year, but we're a very young country. A lot of nations think in terms of centuries and decades, and a lot of times we think of election cycles. So I'm preparing for this election next year, but I also want to keep everything I do in perspective of future generations, of my kids, of my grandkids, because I want our country to continue to flourish and to continue to have this way of life that we've been able to have.
We talked about this before, but we're coming up on our 250th anniversary of America. First, does Kent County have anything planned that you want to talk about to the listeners out there?
We actually don't have anything widely planned. In fact, I think it's something that I'm looking forward to. I've been looking forward to it as an American and excited about it as an American. That the thought to start utilizing and utilizing our big birthday to springboard election discussions and discussions about our republic and our process. I haven't really haven't really taken the time to think about that and put that into place, but I'm hoping that there's still time. But at the end of the day, I think this is true cause for celebration, and it's coming in between large election years. So you're coming off 2024, you've got 250th birthday, and then you've got, the 2026 election. This whole year is such an opportunity to magnify our elections, magnify the nation and the founding of our country, and how we continue to become a more perfect union. We've never been perfect. We're not perfect, but to be a more perfect union, everything we've gone through as a nation, and continue to look toward a brighter and better future. I think we have a tremendous opportunity to integrate and weave in our elections process, our democratic process.
What
Well
is
said. Thank
yeah,
you very
definitely.
much.
What is your favorite founding father or figure from that time when folks were gathering in Ari and I's home state of Pennsylvania and creating our system of democracy that has gotten us this far?
I wish I could say, well, no, I'm not going to say I wish I could say. I like to tend to be a little more nonconformist or unexpected in some answers, but my favorite founding father is by far George Washington. And I'd like to say maybe some other obscure father that doesn't get a lot of the hype, a lot of the same hype, but there is a reason George Washington is the legend that he is. And he's my favorite founding father for multiple reasons. Number one, as the commander of the Continental Army, he didn't come in to this position with wide success. And this was something that he demonstrated through action, his abilities and victory. He was resourceful and adaptive to any, he knew battle, he knew strategy, but variables that are outside of a leader's control, and weather or what the other, what the opponents are doing, those variables he didn't let rattle. He used those. So he was very adaptable at unpredictable variables, and being able to rise above challenges in a way that inspires the people around him. I just love that so much. And then war is over, and George Washington has the opportunity, not once, but twice, to hang on to power. And he relinquishes it for the good of the country. When he was commanding officer after the war, he did that. And then again, after serving 2 terms as president, he did that. And he set the precedent of what a servant leader is. He wasn't running after these positions. He was sought after because of his dignity, because of his leadership. And so I think that he is a remarkable man, imperfect to be sure. But I think this country is what it is because George Washington utilized his gifts, his strengths, his talents, and really knew when he needed to step up and when he needed to step back. And it was always about America.
And he was a fellow farmer and a fellow hunter.
He was.
Yeah.
Lisa,
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time and for sharing this great insight and for the work that you do each and every week. Really appreciate it.
Well, I thank you guys. Truly, I can't say it enough. I say it often, but I won't say it enough. How helpful and and important the role that you are playing at Keep Our Republic in engaging election administrators and in engaging the clerks, the public. It is truly appreciated, and I'm looking forward to continuing that.
We have one more question for you, which we need to ask, which is the closest election you've ever seen. You have a 16-year-old who will soon be 18, and he'll be voting. So how would you tell him about the closest election you've ever seen, and make sure that him and his friends vote?
Bottom line is every election is important and every vote matters. I have, before my time as clerk in Kent County, back in 2012, we had 2 elections here at the county commission level. One was decided by 3 votes. Another was on election day, a longtime incumbent was lost by 5 votes. But again, part of the process is making sure everything was accurate. After the canvass and the certification of the results, he actually ended up winning by 32 votes. But again, going from thinking you lost by 5 to winning by 32, it's a good reminder that elections aren't over until every vote is counted. And then having an election, you put in all that work, you put in all that effort. As a voter, you have hope in the person that you're casting your ballot for, and to have that decided by 3 votes, by 2 votes, man, that demonstrates that every vote does count. On a larger scale, just recently in 2016, Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton here in Michigan by only 10,704 votes. That is an extremely close margin, considering it was over 4.5 million voters cast a ballot statewide. That was a very close election. And then the closest election I've witnessed that I've been part of actually was in 2022. We have elections here in Michigan for precinct delegate. And, it might not sound sexy, but it is a very important position. Each party will elect precinct delegates, and those delegates are responsible for going to their party's conventions. And again, a lot of people who aren't involved in any political party may not think that's a big deal, but in Michigan it is, because this is where we nominate secretaries of state candidates. This is where we nominate attorney general candidates, Supreme Court candidates, the candidates that are going to be on our ballots for school board, statewide school board, and things like that. So it seems insignificant, but it has a very important role that it plays. In 2022, I had 2 ties for precinct delegate positions. And do you want to know how those are decided in Michigan? I draw a name out of the hat. That's how you determine who wins an election in a tie, by drawing a name. You never want to be in a position where if you would have just gotten one more voter to come out as a candidate, or as a voter thinking, I forgot, it's getting close to, my PJs are already on, it'll be fine. You never want to relinquish or abdicate your right to cast your ballot and make your voice heard, because it matters every time.
Was it a Tigers hat you used?
It was not a Tigers hat, but I do like the Tigers. We're having a good time watching these players. Yeah.
Lisa, thank you again. I really appreciate everything you're doing week in, week out.
Likewise, I'm glad to be with you guys. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Ari.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
If you like this episode, please share it on social media and tell your friends. It's the best way for folks to find out about us. I hope you'll agree that our guest is indeed a keeper of the Republic. If you want to learn more about how you can help keep our Republic, stop on over to our website, keepourrepublic.org.